My name is John Mendez, and I am your host. Welcome to Walk to Wealth, where I motivate and inspire people new to the world of personal finance by letting you all in behind the scenes of someone who's still on his way. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Walk to Wealth podcast. I have a very special guest with me. No matter where you're tuning in, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you're tuning in from, make sure to share this podcast with a friend. We're going over some really valuable information, and I would really appreciate if you could just help get the word out a little bit so I can continue impacting other people's lives. Without further ado, Tracy, for anyone that may not know you, tell us your elevator pitch.
So I guess my bio says I'm an international, global award-winning, multi-award-winning publicist working across industries and working across borders. What is a publicist? I get that question all the time. Is it just for rock stars? Is it just for celebrities? We do that too, but it's also for entrepreneurs, for people who want to become thought leaders, which just means, anybody who wants the public to understand the knowledge they have in their industry and to become kind of a talking head about what that they do. Television, radio, newspapers, podcasts. So that's what I do, is frame the amazing things that other people are doing and get it out there so that the public can see it, so they can, potentially get on award stages, so they can be interviewed by media and elevate, their brands and their business. So I always say the things that I speak on often is how to do what I did, which is build your global brand without ever spending a penny on advertising.
And that is amazing, because majority of small people, like small entrepreneurs, one of their biggest struggles is just getting their name out there, being heard. So Tracy, I got a privilege to kind of hear your story a little bit when we met originally, but for the audience, tell us a little bit about your walk to wealth. How did you get to here? Where did it all start from? How did this journey, start flourishing and start developing into, what you have going on now?
Yeah, so I'll try to give the short Reader's Digest condensed version, because mine is a really interesting story. So if you want to hear more, Google, and because I do a lot of talking about it, getting my word out there, you can find it if you Google. So I was in my 20s. My husband, Dave Parkinson, and I were just in our mid-20s or late 20s at the time. We were both in entry-level sales, just, both had two different jobs, doing our thing. We were also young activists, and it was the early days of the internet. And we used to have a radio show, but we didn't anymore. And so we thought, oh, well, here's this interwebs thing. We can make a web page and just, kind of talk about issues that we care about a little bit, link to things, and still kind of have a voice out there as we're just, living and doing our job. We ended up finding out about a case about searching on the internet. I guess we were looking at anti-racist thing. There was some police abuse. I don't even know exactly what we've been looking at that brought us to this path. We heard about a young man named Jimmy Dennis, our age at the time, 28 years old, who was saying he was innocent on death row, sentenced to death on Pennsylvania. We thought, gee, how innocent can this guy be? And my husband and I wrote to him to figure it out. I mean, people are like, why would you do that? Because I think we'd had the radio show a couple of years before that, we were still in that kind of journalistic frame of mind, even though we didn't have that platform. We were really struck by this. Like, you hear about that. You didn't hear about it as much in those days, but here's someone saying, help me. Could this be true? For some reason he wrote back 20 pages on both sides, with all the details. It was disturbing. Well, what are we supposed to do with that? We don't have money. We weren't publicists. We weren't lawyers. Didn't even know what a publicist was in those days. My husband learned how to make a website, like an actual website, as opposed to just links. And I learned how to write a press release. And that was in 1998. And that started a 20-year journey. He'd been on death row already 5 or 6 years. He ended up being on death row for 25 years, of which of that 18 years of that, we were, the only people that he called every week. We were the ones doing the long distance. We would do things. We started a Justice for Jimmy campaign, which was basically a media campaign where these two kids in their late 20s who had no idea about media learned to write press releases and reach it to international media. We did it with some success. So after, ultimately that story ended, in a good way when he was released from death row in 2017. And now he's an R&B artist. And I have the pleasure of saying, which I love saying in a podcast, that at one time I'd be saying with any platform, please help me save his life. And now I can say, catch my client, Jimmy Dennis, R&B artist on all streaming platforms. Some great music. Go download it. So that's a pleasure right there. So, and then how it turned into the business story is, it wasn't like it was that's successful now I'll be a publicist. It didn't occur. It was 28 when I first wrote that press release. That journey was through my whole 30s. And it wasn't until I was 42 that I suddenly thought, and still doing sales for different companies, that I suddenly thought, wait a minute, those skills, that press release thing that I've been doing, like that's actually something that, because, whenever I was interested in a cause or a political campaign or something, and my friends would all be doing whatever, I'd be like, I'll write the press release. And they would always say like, you'll do what now? And so I realized that I had this skill, this understanding of media and how to get to media that I used over and over that nobody else had, or at least that regular people didn't seem to have, or that businesses. So then I thought, oh, you know what? I can segue this into anybody that needs to get in the news, whether it's artists and filmmakers and, all the people that we think of, or what's become a real passion for me is small business. As much as I'm Cannes Film Festival accredited, I go to Cannes, I do all the big VIP parties and travel. That's a pleasure. But it's become surprisingly an equal pleasure, honestly, is to help work with and elevate businesses and small businesses and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, because it's exciting and fun to be able to say, oh, look, I got you in this, and to help them rise, just like it is, to help a filmmaker's dream or an artist's dream come true. It's the same kind of thing, right? So that's what I do. I have somehow out of it wasn't like a passionate hobby or something, but it could be that kind of story, but out of something that I did in the other part of my life that I never thought, never was thinking about creating an income from, I ended up developing these skills that when it finally hit me, and then I was strategic about it. Okay, so how do I go find the clients? How do I prove myself? That was 10 years ago. I'm 52 now. That was when I was 42. So, and I never went to school for this. I literally never went to university for this. And now I'm asked to teach university classes. No, I'm not a professor, but I'm brought in as a guest, to Algonquin College in Canada to teach other publicists how to do this or that, or to speak at, things at the Small Business Expo when they could be having any number of publicists do it, but they're flying me in from Canada. So I ended up developing, the proof is in the pudding, exactly what I've done for myself, with no advertising, no education of it, just showing, just showing what I can do, and proving it and getting out there. And that's what I do for my clients. Like literally the whole world is your oyster. Whether you're a doctor, baker, candlestick maker, the guy who mows the lawns, the guy, the woman who changes the sheets at the hotel, you have knowledge. You literally have interesting knowledge. Like you would be surprised how many media opportunities you don't even know about that you could be quoted in that are happening like every day where they're looking for someone who does this to be quoted. That's what I do, is I find those opportunities and I make. If you're a baker, you become the superstar baker. If you're the hairstylist, you become the celebrity hairstylist.
Yeah, and that's amazing because for me, I really enjoy marketing. I have a very creative mind. I'm always trying to come up with ideas. But even for me, someone that's super creative, the extent to my creativity pretty much stops at social media. Nowadays, everyone thinks marketing, the only thing they think of is social media. They don't think of any other ways to brand themselves and stuff like that. And most people,
yes, John, we hear the same thing. You said it exactly right. The social media, they hear the social, same thing. What's the second word of social media? Media. So people sometimes hear that, they go, oh, I already am doing it. I'm doing media. I'm doing social. No. You need to do that. But there's also the component that people are forgetting about, don't know how to do in the small business world. And this is why is it so important? Like I think I said to you when we spoke earlier, there's not one corporation in the world, major corporation, that doesn't have a communications department or a publicist. Not one. Why do they have that? And why do we not have it as small business people? And do you see how, now that you understand the kind of media opportunities that exist out there, that people are grabbing for them, why there's not a level playing field? Or a big part of the reason is these are the guys getting quoted in the big magazines now, in Business Insider, in Forbes, and whatever. When the little guy can be quoted in there too, the reporter doesn't care. He's looking for the knowledge. But they look every day, the reporters look for the people to give them this info when they're looking for it. And how do they find it? They have all these different resources. You don't necessarily have to be a publicist to access. You could pay, hundreds of dollars a month and spend hours of your day every single day looking through all of these to try to find the one or two opportunities that are good for you, and then use them. That's possible. You can do that. Or if you have, like a lot of us, a little bit And, if you're time poor, sometimes you're better off paying someone who already has the expertise, who already knows the landscape and, understands it all, can just boom, 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 get you in with an hour or two of work, as opposed to you having to figure out the landscape for 100 hours, introduce yourself, and,
Yeah, and that's another thing too that is super interesting, because with this information, it's something that, and I feel like with most things that are actually valuable and actually impactful in life, it's pretty hard to like come into casual conversation about it, because the I guess the stigma or the stereotype behind it, it's like if you're in a newspaper article, it's like you're a somebody, and most people don't think that they're somebodies, and because they're how they don't identify as somebodies, they don't even try to consider things like that.
No, you're 1,000% on board, Joyce. But I always say the only difference between, you, whatever you're in, and the guy you see on TV that's in your industry or whatever, talking about your industry, or the person on the award stage, the only difference is that guy got himself out there. It's not magic. They don't find you. And the media is also not going to be going in. They don't go, like, say they want to interview a doctor. You think, okay, maybe it's a bad example because they may know a specialist, but just say they have an idea in their head about a landscape story, and they're going to go, contact, like, you think they would just call up a bunch of landscape companies and ask them? Well, they don't do that because, number one, they don't know if you're going to be media friendly, if you can know how to answer media, if you're going to, they don't, so they go to these things. But there's literally the only difference between you and the guy that, that is up there is that they made themselves known. So people have the perception that if they interview a chef on TV, he must be the best chef in the town. That's why they found him there. When in reality, he's probably the one that suggested the idea of the story to the show. Or, when they put out their pitch, his publicist responded, oh, yep, he's got that here. And they're like, yep, that looks good. And they throw him on, So there's no, what you have to use to get that confidence, because I get that a lot. I know it's a very good question, because people say that, don't ask me that, but it's true that I hear that a lot from clients or even pre-clients when I'm like, well, why aren't you in TV and media? Wow, you do so much amazing stuff. Oh, well, why would they want to talk to me? You know what? Why, if you're in business, right, you have the confidence to put your proverbial shingle out and to tell people, hey, I'm really good at this. Give me your money to do this. So right there, you obviously have the confidence in your skills, right? You obviously think you do it a little better than other people, or at least as well, they should pay you to do it, or you wouldn't be doing that, right? Take that same confidence and realize, that same skill that you have, that same expertise, media doesn't have that, you have every right to be the guy or the woman or whatever talking about what you do in that space. So, and then you think, oh, but I'm just a landscaper. Why would I? Or I'm just why would they want to talk to me? Again, like I had a marketing guy hire me. You think, oh, I mean, it's fascinating, but you think, how many media stories are there going to be on marketing? That week, I got him more, just by looking at the landscape incoming stuff, I got him more media that week than any other client in the big glam thing. Because there's a ton of stuff. Mainstream media. From mainstream things like entrepreneur asking this or that to like a magazine for dentists asking this or that to like, just a whole, and then by the time you're in 3 of them, now all of a sudden you're nationally quoted, you're nationally, recognized. Now you get the speaking engagements. Now you're literally just boom, 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 right?
So now I think we stumbled across a pretty interesting path right here. So I kind of want to go on down 2 different roads. First road, let's go down the path of someone who is time poor, but has the money to invest in something. How does someone, let's say, they have a pretty established business, they're an entrepreneur, they might have a couple employees, they've been up and running for maybe like a year or 2, but, they're still hyper local. They don't have their brand anywhere else. They're just going by word of mouth, but they, are looking to grow a little bit further. For that person that has their business, whether that's a landscaping business or like a chef or whatever it may be, how does that person who is time poor then expand his brand to a wider audience?
So that's where I would suggest, coming to a publicist. And, I do work, this is the advertorial part. I work across industries and across borders, Lamourie Media. That's advertorial. Just everything else we've been talking about was editorial, just to give you the example. When I talk about me, what I can do for you, that's advertorial, right?
So what's the difference between the two, between advertorial and editorial for anyone?
To understand whether you're getting a publicist or whether you're trying to do it on your own. That is the number one. Do not ever try to pitch if you don't get this. So Editorial is what we all think about. My business is the best. This is why you should hire me. This is what we think about, our avatar, like what we in advertising and marketing, the kind of thing we think of the messages that we're going to convey. If you try to send those things to a newsroom, that's great. They're going to tell you to please buy an ad, So what a newsroom is looking for is the information, the expertise, that information that, that you can, so you consider you are a source of information. That's what you're doing. You will get the benefit. Like, you're not there to think about getting a free ad. You will get the benefit of that. But what you are doing in your role is to be a source for that information. And then they'll say, our source, John Mendes, who is an expert who speaks every day to, a real estate agent. You know what I mean? So that you'll get that benefit, but what your job is to be a source there. So when I'm here on this podcast, is a perfect example. I'm talking to people about the benefits of PR, why they need to be thinking about it, what it can do, how they can do it, what are the differences between, that's editorial. When I start talking about what I'm going to do, what I specifically will do when you like, if I'm promoting myself, that's advertorial, but I'll be, advertorial because I would be happy to consult with anybody who hears me on this show, but also to speak editorially, just more generally, you would reach out. I guess I can only, but this is how I work. I can only speak on how I work. I don't necessarily know how other people work, right? But when someone comes to me like that, they just have to give me their bio, they give me other existing bio or details. I'll create a little compelling media-friendly version of it to say things like, he makes a compelling speaker who can do, fascinating segments on blah, 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 with an audience of, so I pump it up and make it sound, more media-friendly. But basically, then, I gather up any existing, links they have in terms of socials, all that stuff. And I just, put it together in just like, like I said, a compelling little thing, why they're the expert to talk to, which is the information that they already have recording. And then I start reaching out, whether it's two things, if they have like a story they want to put out, then we might be doing a press release and a media advisory locally, nationally, internationally, where we're like, hey, this company has this product, it's innovative, or this idea, or they're responding to this thing in the marketplace, or whatever it is, where we're putting out message widely that they want. And then the other half of it is me spending 3 or 4 hours a day, like I do, not on any one project, but I'm going through all these for all of my clients, pulling out, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. So all the client, they don't have to worry about all that 3 or 4 hours that it takes to go through all that, which they would have to do. They only have to worry about Tracy's time. Now she found 3 things for me. Okay, so I just get billed for that 20 minutes. Now I have 20 minutes of gold. I contact them and, either they can write their responses to the reporter, or I can call them up and transcribe their responses. And then I frame it with all that exciting language about why they're the great guy to talk to, send these pictures up to the reporters. Sometimes the next day we hear back, yay. Sometimes it's weeks later, but after a few weeks of working together, you have developed, several big, little, all kinds of stuff going on. I had one client who had a good housekeeping article, which was appropriate for her brand, the day after she hired me. Obviously it took weeks to come out, but she was interviewed and she knew it was coming out literally the day after she hired me, and she had zero media experience. So what we do is just, put a frame around the amazing things that other people are doing, frame it so that it can be seen, and the right light shine on it, and and I literally had one client tell me after 6 weeks of working together, "You changed my business and my life." I always quote that because it was so, I get a lot of accolades, but when I asked her why, she said, "You've made investors take me more seriously." And I was like, "Oh yeah," because I always think about attracting the customer and like differentiating yourself from the competitor and all that. But of course, you're in seed funding or whatever, and they go and search imagine you're going to give money to a company, and they've got a beautiful deck, and we all say the great things about ourselves we want to say on socials, but then you go to that thing called Google and you search, and if you don't find anything there, are you going to be dropping $1 million or whatever? Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, you're comparing the other company that's asking for your money, you go and Google, they're not even in operation, they've already won an award for innovation, they're already getting interviewed in these 5 places, and so clearly there's interest in the marketplace and them and what they have to say, and I haven't even given them any money to work with yet. What are they going to do when I give them the money? Boom. Right?
That's amazing. And so for that, that's when someone is time poor. Now, the second route I'm going to go down, and probably this is going to be a lot of my listeners, me, myself included, is now the situation where someone is, I guess, money poor, but they have a lot of time and they're able to, invest a little bit. How would then one go, about trying to, build their brand and their media presence beyond just only using social media.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the number one thing is really, please, 1,000% get your head around that editorial versus advertorial. Because if you're going to reach out to reporters, and the number one reason that a lot of reporters, and I really hate that you hear this increasingly these days, that, oh, we don't even open up emails from entrepreneurs, because, well, this is why. Because 90% of the time when they open up an email from an entrepreneur, they'll get some crap that's like advertorial, and they don't understand what the editor needs, and it's just not even a news story. It's like an ad for like their sale or something. So if you think about how many emails you get in a day that you don't even want to go through and you just delete without reading, imagine how many emails an editor gets in a day. So we all edit, in our heads before we look through everything. So no one's sitting there reading everything. So you have to be, doesn't mean you have to have a publicist. It means you have to be, that header better be good. That's important for me too, because they won't read my emails even. They'll decide just by the email. Oh, that's great, Tracy, but I don't care about that one. Just by the header before they even look to see the great content, right? So the header is super important. That it has to be relevant. You have to understand their audience. You have to really, you're not like, hey, I'd love to have a free, but think about, so so let's leave the press releases aside for a minute, because that's if you're putting out messaging and, what should I put out and where should I put it and everything. Forget that for a sec. But to think about the easy, quick, low-hanging fruit, that as long as you get the difference between editorial and advertorial, and you write your own little bio that, talks about the things I've said, where it's not about you trying to sell, but you literally are trying to impart, your information, that works. So, go to things like this. Go to Help a Reporter Out, Harrow. It's free online. That's where you'll see things like, Reader's Digest for the deadline of Friday at 2. I'm looking to speak to, real estate agents and what color to paint their kitchen for it to sell faster. Or Forbes, for deadline at 2, looking to speak to entrepreneurs about how they've handled COVID, or whatever. You have no idea, like across the board. Until you look at it, you just shot. So Help a Reporter Out is one, Harrow. Quoted is another one that costs a couple $100 a month, though, so you might as well be paying a publicist if you're paying for that one. But you can check out, to get your feet wet, check out #Journo, JOURNO request. Mostly you're going to see a lot of UK ones on that, but not exclusively. So these will give, but if you check out these things, it will give you some idea. And I know, you said real estate, and you'll see a ton of stuff for real estate on there. And the key with Harrow is, and with all these things, is do not write the essay, they're writing the article. So you want to give them quick, concise answers. Like speed is important. Like don't labor over it for 2 days and then send it 10 minutes before the deadline, because it's just not going to get picked up, because these reporters using it to get quick answers, right? They might get 2 answers, they might get 200. Do not always assume they get a lot. Sometimes they get a lot and they're all crap and nothing what they want. So if you have a good answer, send it, and then always say, hey, I'm happy to expand on this, if you would like, right? And sometimes they just take that quote and that's all. They never hear from them. The next thing you know, you're in Reader's Digest to be quoted. And other times they'll be like, that's great. Can I talk to you? We do a half-hour interview, whatever. But those are some of the big ones. Those are some of the things that we use every single day. And then the other sides is topical press releases, where you might have a comment because you're an expert in real estate and you see something in the marketplace and you think, hey, this is what I say about that. Well, instead of saying that to your friend, tell me, and I can write a topical press release out of it, like, John Mendez, a real estate out of blah, 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 says this about that. And we put that out and they may be like, oh yeah, that's great. And that may go in their next article about, so that's when you have something going on in the world that you have an expertise in, so you can comment on. Or then you have the press releases, where you have done something, like your company's hired somebody or you have a new product. It might be less likely to get picked up, because it's advertorial sort of, but you still need to let them know about it. You're still putting it out on your website. You're still putting it out. Sometimes it's a media advisory, so the media knows about it, even though you don't think they're necessarily going to write an instant article on it. It's a basis for the next one, so yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. So, but for people to do is to just start doing their own. I'd say stay away from the press release, because you're probably not going to get it quite right. Unless, if you're a good writer, you could, but make sure you're studying the format of press releases. Make sure you understand what should go in there in terms of what the newsrooms want to see. Make sure you really understand who you're sending it to, or you're just going to piss off the newsroom if you send them irrelevant stuff, which makes it harder to reach out next time. It's as easy to burn bridges as it is to build them. So don't be just, So, but a good way of good going in is that Harrow, those Source Bottle, those are all free. Quoted as $200 a month. but stick with the freebies for now. The HARO, which is help a reporter out, the hashtag journal requests, the source model with Australia, and these will give you an idea and kind of start to frame yourself. You're going to find stuff no matter what you do that you can respond to. Start, just get out there. I know John and I were talking about I know Authority has a really good feature on real estate, and I know he's a rising real estate star, right? So we're going to be doing you'll be able to do a show maybe later where we can show them how that worked out and how we show you to the Authority editors, and they're like, well, yeah, for sure. And then all of a sudden you have this nice article, and you build on
definitely. And so I feel like, and nowadays, at least, especially like during the pandemic, we're kind of coming out of it now. But like the closest connection that you can make with someone is face to face, in person, having belly to belly, having a conversation. The next best thing to it is having some video / audio type of connection to someone, whether that's on FaceTime or Zoom or what we're on right now. So for anyone that's looking to get into like some type of like, TV or like, video style interview, is that like the next step after media press releases, or so can someone go straight to that without doing the media press releases?
Like the idea of the media press release is to I might do TV and radio. Like I send out to television and radio too. The press releases to generate interest in the in interviewing you, right? So TV, radio, podcasts, all of it for sure, and as well as the digital stuff and the online stuff and all that. Like to me, just the big media world, I pitch to all of them depending on the project, the client, the goal, the audience, who we're trying to reach and all that stuff. So yeah.
Okay, and for someone who, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs think like, oh no, I just, I'll grow my business word of mouth only. I'm just, past clients and things like that. Can you try to, break down the importance of why someone should incorporate, no matter what stage of their career that they're in, media and different styles of, marketing?
Why they should incorporate? Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, whether you're trying to get more clients, again, like it depends. I'm not in a position where I need, I take limited new clients, like a few here and there. Like if you want to work together, I'd love to work with you. A few as I get to know them, but I'm not in need of new clients. You know what I mean? And if 50 of them came to me, I couldn't take them, right? So I don't need to but yet I still spend a ton of time doing this and a ton of time. To me, this isn't advertising. This is, again, you hear the term thought leadership these days, right? Building your thought leadership. Well, why? Well, you may have different goals. My goal is, I love to educate and speak about PR. So literally, you mentioned that I'm going to be speaking in Denver, for example, next week. And I'm speaking in Malta, I'm doing a workshop in Denver next week. I'm doing a keynote in November in Malta. Well, John, I'm super proud of those things. You know why? More than almost anything else I've done. Because that was my plan at the beginning of COVID, when I was like, oh my God, I was so depressed like everybody else. And like all of a sudden, all those travels stopped, all those contracts stopped that were about entertainment. Everything was like, because 2019, we were traveling everywhere. Things were going great. 2020, what? So I thought, no. After like 2 weeks of stressing out about it, I was like, no, you know what? My voice can still travel. I'm going to start doing some of these podcasts I've been putting my clients on. I'm going to speak and educate with this. I'm going to and I was still busy even in COVID because really quickly I generated other business, right? So I was still busy keeping the lights on. But I thought, no, and I started putting like 3-4 hours a week into doing unpaid work when I get paid a lot, right? Doing podcasts, guesting on big podcasts, little podcasts, it doesn't matter, all over the place. Panels and speaking engagements and everything. And I said to myself specifically, I can't travel right now. My voice can travel. On the other end of this, if I didn't know how many I'd be able to do, but if I keep doing this messaging, speaking to business, at the other end of this, there will be travel and there will be stages, and I will be doing not just what I'm amazing at, PR, but I literally said to myself, no, I am going to start talking about what I do, not just, doing it. And I did that in July 2020, and I started doing, and we're like 2 years in now, and between like a year and a half, I did like 200 podcasts, a lot of time away from work. But now I'm getting those speaking engagements, just like I said. And I said, I'm going to have them. I'm going to translate these podcasts into speaking engagements. And now I'm going to translate them into well-paid speaking engagements. It's going to happen next. So you just have to figure things out and be strategic. There's a whole world, and we all have access, especially in COVID. We thought, oh, what are we going to do? But you know what I realized in COVID? We are all, and I know because I work across industries with celebrities, with business people I realize we are all of us are freaking out a little right now, thinking, oh my God, what do we do now? And we all are doing the same thing, sitting in front of these screens, trying to figure out our next step. Everybody. So then I was like, I'm going to research. I'm going to message people. I'm not going to be afraid to put myself out there. And now I'm reaping the benefits now, literally, of not falling apart in 2020 and of saying, I'm going to elevate my brand. And so to get back to thought leadership. So it's about thought. That's what the value of thought leadership is. So I already had a career in PR. I had a previous unpaid career in human rights that became public, right? And then I built over 10 years or over 8 years, I guess, up to the beginning of COVID, from 8 years before COVID to COVID, I built this epic PR career where I was getting clients across industries to the point where I was the VIP travel and the trips and blah, blah, blah. And then what have I done since COVID? I'm still doing that. And I've continued that even further, right? Supporting it with this new thing I built. I literally have basically built another career for myself since COVID, speaking about my career. I decided I'm going to do a little bit more of that. Because I have that knowledge. Why shouldn't I be one of those guys on the stage? Yeah. And I consciously did, and anybody can do that. So I'm just saying, like, I took my knowledge, and instead of just doing my job, whether it was PR or landscaping or hotel, whatever the job is the listener has, and I started speaking about it, getting myself out there. That means Googling, who can I speak to? Where are the speaking engagements? Who's looking for speakers? Writing together that pitch, same as that elevator pitch, same as that media pitch. So it's everything in life to be successful is about communication and not being afraid to reach out there and just say, so that, no matter what it is you do, don't just, at the end of the day, instead of just playing Nintendo or watching TV or Netflix, go and research. What in this little box in front of me might be of value to me?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I wanted to ask you, I know you kind of just went over a lot right now, is though, how in your head, in the midst of one of the most uncertain times in human existence, in at least the last couple 100 years or so, were you able to have such, I guess, partially hope, or maybe it's, foresight, or, were you able to see amidst everything that was going on, I'm going to do this, and it's going to lead to this. So how were you able to get your mind around that?
Because I was either going to be staring at the screen, just freaking out like everybody was about, listen to this leader and that leader and this one talking about whatever, and we're all in that loop for a while. And I was like, okay, no, I have to either go back to my desk, even if I've lost 80% of my work. So what do I do? Am I going to lose the other 20, or am I going to go to my desk and do that 20? And as soon as I got my head around looking away from the stress and stop worrying about what was going to be and what wasn't going to be and blah, 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 and just going back to the work that I had in front of me and thinking about how I could get more, from the next day, all of a sudden I had all kinds of clients. And then I was like, oh, I thought COVID was going to be a break for a minute, the joking. I was like, oh, I thought we were, and now it turns out I'm just as busy like everyone else is watching the Netflix and like wondering what to do. And I'm like, I hope I get an hour, because I ended up, but it's just because I realized, no, like, you can either stagnate, right? Or you can figure it out. And like for anything, you can either fail or just figure it out the next step. So like, I don't know, like as I started to do it, it started to become more clear. I was like, no, I'm going to keep doing this now. I literally remember consciously thinking, no, because I was spending a lot of time on them. I'm like, no. This is a real thing. I am going to get the same thing. Will be stages. It will be stages. This is why not. As soon as I thought of that, that became my goal, right? That's I'm actually working towards that. And why wouldn't that? Now, so all I have to do is keep on resending out to podcasters or whoever else would listen to my message. And now that I have all this, and now when people Google me, and at first I had like 3 of them, people were like, oh yeah, come on, sure. And then they're, oh, that was great. Well, now I go on almost every show I want if it's within, if it's within the realm of like their audience. They're like, sure. They look at my resume and they're like, oh my God, yeah, please. And then they talk to me, and I do have super valuable information. Like I know I have valuable information for the audience, right? So that made me confident to reach out. Just as confident as I am to reach out for speaking engagements now. Or I'm running like this Colorado. I've never done an actual workshop on this before. But my husband's like, oh, you got to put together a workshop there. And I'm like, 45 minutes talking to people about small business PR, like I've been literally doing for 2 years, 3 times a day, like constantly. Like there's nothing they could, like I don't need to, there's nothing they could ask me. Like I could just spell it off about my passion about it. And then, the only workshop part is, okay, now we're going to break off into 3, you do this, you do that, like, workshop, right? But so anyway, how did you know? I don't know. You just have to believe in yourself. And again, it just comes down to, but I remember, how did I know? I don't know. I could have been wrong, but I do remember consciously thinking, no, there's going to be an end to this. And at the end of this, when I have under my belt 200 examples of me speaking about this, I'm going to be able to find speaking engagements. And so now my goal is, as much as I love PR, I'm going to, watch me in 5 more years, I'll be doing way less of it. I'll have maybe 10 clients, and I'll be too busy going away speaking for, $5,000 for the afternoon. Like, I have clients in business. I have a client in civility. She literally, like, civility in the office. It's not like hard business, soft skills. And she gets paid $5,000 pre-pandemic. I don't know about now, for half a day in the office of talking about this stuff. So, and I go in and talk about how to get in media, how to deal with media, so this is like gold for business. So literally, I could probably stop doing PR now and just start write myself a little pitch about being a speaker and start reaching out to companies, and that could be my 4th career. So literally, what I'm saying is there's no like barrier. It's all in here. So whether you're selling your book or your company or your whatever, it's hugely valuable to do this, to elevate yourself and your own thought leadership, because no matter what you're selling, today it could be a business, tomorrow it could be a book, maybe tomorrow you're looking for a new job, and this is going to make you the most valuable player, give you $100,000 more salary, because it makes you that much more attractive. So that's all it is. It comes down to, that.
Yeah, and so one thing I noticed too a lot is that a lot of people kind of have this sort of imposter syndrome, especially with like social media and everything. You just get so fixated on what the next guy is doing, and these guys are living it big and they're doing so many amazing things. A lot of people, and even if they are successful, they kind of, with that imposter syndrome, they kind of discredit themselves, and they don't see the success that's in front of them. And you mentioned confidence, and a lot of this is just mental and confidence. What advice would you give to someone who is probably ready to take on some type of media or press engagement, but is lacking that confidence, is dealing, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's they're self-conscious or whatever it may be, wherever the lack of confidence stems from doesn't really matter, but the lack of confidence, how do they tackle that and to then get actually be willing to move forward with one of these engagements?
Yeah, that's where I always think, just remind yourself again, like, if I were to say to that business guy who said to me, I'm nervous, I would say, well, are you a scam then? Well, of course I'm not. Well, of course you're not. You're not, you wouldn't be taking people's money if you weren't confident in what you're doing, in your knowledge about what you're doing. So again, take that same confidence that you have to even be in business in the first place, and realize, I'm an expert in this. This is what I do. The guy with the mic doesn't know that. The guy holding the microphone doesn't know what I do. They need my knowledge for their article. These people need, and just realize that you are the expert in what you do, and that there is always a demand for it. Somebody is speaking about what you do. Why not you? Put it that way.
Mm.
Do you think your associate or the guy, your competitor, knows more than you? Of course he doesn't. He just gotta, you know what I mean? In most cases, you watch some guy on TV, you're like, I know that. Why do they put him on there?
Yeah.
In your industry? Of course you do. They just got, so get out there and don't have that fear.
Yeah, I kind of witnessed that within myself, honestly, because like one of the things I'm doing, so I seen a good quote from Grant Cardone. He was like, instead of trying to get a second stream of income and something that's completely separate, try to find a second stream of income that, is within that first stream. And so for me, what I did, right, is so, I try to get into trading. I'm invested in index funds, but I try to get a little bit into trading, and that kind of fell out. I wasn't interested. I kind of was like, why not? There's an opportunity. But it's like, honestly, my heart wasn't there. I could care less for trading. And it showed because I didn't put any work to learn about trading to then move forward with it. But then, so my main thing is a real estate agent. And so within real estate, there's a point back in January of 2022 where I made a quick Facebook post in one of the real estate Facebook groups that I'm in. And this lady from Massachusetts was like, hey, would you mind teaching a class on this? And I was like, hey, I never taught a class before. And she was like, John, tell us the date. And at that point in time, it's like, I can't say no after that. And so, and long story short, I ended up preparing my first class back in, it ended up being February, I think the second week of February on a Friday. I ended up getting like over 440 agents from across the country and a couple in Toronto to sign up for that class. And I had 200 agents show up live. from across the country,
Beautiful.
ranging from like brand new agents to like slightly new agents like me to millionaire real estate agents grossing over $1 million in commission income a year. And it's like everyone in between. And so like for me, I'm now at a point where I finally gained the confidence after teaching a couple classes. I taught for my office. I taught a class in Spanish. I taught for a group of dual career agents. I'm now at a point where from the time of this recording, my first paid social media class is literally tomorrow. And so I'm at a point now where it's like,
John, we gotta talk. We got 30 minutes talking about this because this is gold. Real estate, there's a lot of interest out there.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I say it and it's like it's still hard to believe because on a Zoom screen, especially when you have speaker presentation, it's just you and then another 5 boxes. But little down and in the bottom left hand corner it shows the amount of people in total, and I had 200 people live on one class for my first class ever. And so like then I started taking other people's social media classes, and not to knock any of their classes, but I was looking at it, and a lot of these real estate agents are giving real estate classes on social media as if they were a realtor. So the thing that I do differently than other realtors is when I'm giving this social media information out, I'm teaching this information as an influencer because, for example, I'll make sense to all the realtors that are probably listening. When there's a owner that's selling their house for sale by owner, one of the main thing is, why wouldn't you just use a real estate professional to sell your house? Because they're experienced in transacting in real estate. Well, it's the same exact thing. Why on earth would you go to a realtor for social media help if you can go to a social media influencer who actually has experience in creating content? And so for me, what I've been doing is like I kind of just been listening to as many influencers as I can that I literally just like the social media coaches. I follow all of them and I see how they're doing things, and then I'm bringing that back into what I'm doing. And now I'm at a point from the last 90 days, I've been able to reach over 120,000 accounts on Instagram, and year to date, I have at this time have about 350 views solely on Instagram from Reels. And so it's like, that's what I'm doing. And so when I teach these classes, it's how to use social media. It's not how to sell houses using social media. It's how to use social media.
After telling me that, I thought of like 3 or 4 different media asks that I've seen in the last week, specifically when they were asking for marketer experts on using Reels on Instagram, on TikTok, what kind of responses are entrepreneurs. Like there's so much media out there, even just the expertise that you told me about that you have in the last 2 sentences, that there's media asks about. So it's like, we should do we should do a masterclass, social media / real media,
combine the 2 powerhouses, bring it together.
We should do a class at that and sell that. That would be awesome.
That would be amazing. And with your reach and my reach in our different respective areas, that would definitely like take over, the platform by storm easily.
I think really good. We should do that.
We definitely work something out. And so, but like, long story short is I finally got to a point where I've reached the confidence now. And at first, it was kind of started off as a passion project where it's like, I didn't really want to charge because the goal was I just wanted to get connected to other realtors. I wanted to have a bunch of real estate connections so I can have referrals down the line. And when I need someone in, Wisconsin, it's a phone call away. And so now I'm at a point where like, after the second seminar that I did, which also had over 400 people sign up and 185 people live, literally at the end, I had a Q&A section, and one of the ladies who's a millionaire real estate agent, and by the way, she's a solo millionaire real estate agent, which is even more impressive, but she was like, John, don't ever do one of these for free ever again. And at that point in time, I was like, what should I say after that? Because I did put a lot of time into it. I did put a lot of effort. I did read, the reports.
Charge a lot of money. You mentioned Greg Cardone. Look at the money they charge for those. That's knowledge. It's hard knowledge. And like you said, that networking, and you're putting the time in to make this possible for everybody else to be, for sure.
And so, so now I'm at a point where it's like, there's that. And I already have my next class that I'm kind of planning on, and where I'm going to teach how I'm able to, mass produce, content every week, and how I'm making from 1 hour turn into then 30 to 40 clips for content. which is from my podcast now. What I'm doing with this platform is I'm just clipping this. Like as of right now, I've already got close to 30 clips just from this interview alone. And so then it's like posting those on social media and then teach realtors, hey, you don't have to try that hard to produce content and get your name out there. You just have to know what you're doing, optimize it, become more efficient. And then it's just, you turn into a machine and you're just ramping out content essentially. Yeah. And so as we start getting close to, the end of this, what is your call to action for anyone listening right now, whether they're time poor, money poor, both poor, or they have both? What's your call to action for anyone listening right now?
Yeah, no matter who they are, don't forget the media. And I actually, unlike most publicists, I don't know what they do. I shouldn't say that, but a lot of PR can be off-putting in terms of cost for small businesses. It can be like $3,000 a month, 3 months minimum, like a big marketing campaign, so nobody can touch it. And they're like, maybe one day. I've specifically worked really hard to like create all kinds of different packages and different price points where I know without undercutting myself, that this will take me only a couple hours to get this, and you can get blah, blah, blah. So I've literally set up packages starting at I think around $500 a month, which is unheard of for PR, where you can actually like promise you to get this certain amount of media attention, and it could be something extraordinary in that too, because I do other pitching for you because I'm committed to all my clients at whatever price points. I always want to find stuff. So, but from $500 a month up to $5,000 a month, for hugely corporate entertainment projects to small little solopreneurs and entrepreneurs who can maybe scrape that together, for some real results for a month or two. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey. Absolutely getting media attention will help. It's far beyond any advertising you can get. It does whatever an ad will do, but then on top of it, it builds that credibility. It differentiates you from your competitors. It interests, potential investors. It just builds that framework for you to get more and do more, basically. And that's what I do. So I work globally. I'm traveling all the time for work, but 90% of the work can just be done virtually. It's a virtual world. I'm pitching media in, your city, your state, your country, literally every day for clients in your city, state, country, or all over the world. And so you can just connect with me if you're interested. I'm happy to do a free half hour or even an hour consult with anybody who heard me here. And we can talk specifically about what you could expect and, let people know the different price points that are available, for anybody who wants to. And for that, even if you just can get together that $500 a month for those few things that I put together at that one little price point, what you're going to get for that will absolutely give you the tools that you'll be able to use to turbocharge your business in several different ways. So there's just nothing like that getting that credibility. It like impresses everybody from, your family and friends. Oh, I hear you're doing well. Like literally you see that people tell me like, I heard from everybody, Tracy, that article came out. My aunt Edna was like, they literally, so like your family, that people start to notice and see, and the people that could be, the people that you're with are potential customers, or it could be people that you really want to notice and see, like other media, like whatever else. So anyway, yeah, I'm really passionate about it. There ain't no PR spin. So if anybody, wants to connect with me on the phone or on the Zoom, or if anybody happens to be in Denver, Colorado, I will be there Tuesday to Saturday, speaking for the first time ever, Mile High City. Looking forward to that. I'm speaking in Small Business Expo at 1:00 Colorado time at the Crown Plaza near the airport.
Alrighty, and you kind of.
Anybody has any other speaking engagements, I'm available too. So have passport, we'll travel.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna have all your links and stuff on the show notes. But you said if people wanted to connect you, where can they connect with you?
So my website is lamouriemedia.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Is a great place to connect. It's under Lamourie Media. On Instagram, it's Tracy Lamourie PR Media. You can phone me in Toronto. Number is 289-788-5881. Beverly Hills number is 424-444-8052.
Okay, and so now we have the final 4 questions to wrap up the show, where Tracy doesn't know what I'm going to ask her, but if she listens to some of the podcast episodes, she probably might.
What's your favorite color, Tracy? Think hard.
It's not red. I hope it's not red, right? But yeah, so the first one is, what is the most impactful lesson that you learned in life?
just, you know what, I almost quoted Nike by accident. Just to do it, not to be afraid to do it, not to be afraid to put yourself out there. Literally, you don't have to have a lot of tools. Like, I didn't have the resources or the tools or the respect that I have these days when I was a young activist with crazy red hair saying, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And don't, everybody will question you until you prove yourself. And so you have to be really strong in what you believe and, in terms of what your path, and just stick to it for success, and also that success doesn't necessarily mean, like, now I'm at the point where other people think I'm successful now. Like, oh, people who care about fancy hotel rooms and money, right? But not that I'm a millionaire, but I mean, I'm starting to be able to, I have to go there. I have it, not like a few years ago when I had to borrow money really recently, right? So
Yeah, or
so I'm
stay
at
at
the
the
point now
Motel
where
6,
other
right?
people see that as successful. But it's funny because I have seen myself as successful when I still had to borrow that money. A long time ago when I didn't have money, but when we were successful in helping Jimmy Dennis get off death row, or when I would see my messaging be successful or have results or help people or do whatever, I always felt like, what is success? You find a goal and you kill that goal and you crush that goal and you believe in yourself. And so I feel like I've been doing that for a lot longer than I've had any money in my pocket, And so I think the definition of success, it needs to be changed. I'm always a little bit, when you see, I love those people that are like, oh, now, there's certain people that have the standard definitions, like, oh, now you meet me now and you're like, take off your hat. Yes, madame. And you probably want to give, you meet me 5 years ago and you'd be like, oh, the crazy girl with the red hair. And it's the same girl. I've just figured out how to navigate the financial world now, as well as I had previously
Yeah.
figured out how to navigate the, rest of the world.
And that's amazing. That's amazing. And like not losing yourself is extremely important.
Super important.
As one of the big things that I took away from that. Next question is, what is the most admirable trait a person can have?
I think not being selfish, not just being about yourself, period. Yeah. Number one,
Okay.
it's not about because if like, if you're out for, looking out for number one, you could do that. If you just look out for number one, that's great. But you know what? You better keep on doing it. Because if you're looking out for number one, that's it. You're the only one that's going to be looking out for you. So, you better take care of yourself. But if your priority is other people and you're elevating other people as much as you're elevating yourself, and you're having other people at your table, they're going to have you at your table, then you don't have to look out for number one, because somebody else will always be there to, carry you a bit, right? Or help you when you need it. But, if you're always just about number one, then proceed. You might do real well just until you need someone else.
Yeah. And okay. Next question. If you wanted to change someone's life with one book, what would you recommend?
A book. Wow. Huh. Maybe the book that Jimmy Dennis is in the middle of writing now. Jimmy Dennis, the guy that we helped free from death row, because I'm waiting to hear that story and I lived it. But when somebody who is not, like, his thing was always never give up, and in those circumstances, it's hard to keep on doing that, and so that's his ultimate story, and I think it's going to be a lot of lessons in that, for all of us, beyond just that dramatic circumstance. But if someone in such a dramatic circumstance, I think they will have lessons to teach all of us about getting through it.
Okay. And so the last and final question, what is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind in a few sentences?
Oh, that's hard. I've always done so much of my, I think I've done so much work in my life that I think people call legacy already. And now I'm focusing on, I'm also a mom of 2 kids that are 29 and 19 now, and a grandma. And I hope I hope I'm not just one of those, those bad executive dads that was never there for anything. In the last 10 years, I've been 5 years, especially, super focused on building this. So I want to bring back to I want my legacy to be, I want my legacy to be my family, as well as the things that I've done in the world. I already know I've got a legacy in the realm of the death row thing about helping free an innocent man, but I don't know. It's all weird. Overall, my life, I just want to, I guess, I really want the person, like you referred to, I want the person that I was before to always be happy with what I've done, with who I've become now.
That's amazingly powerful. And so, Tracy, it was a pleasure having you on. I'm super glad that, we were able to get in touch in some way. Although you're in another country, our paths somehow managed to cross.
I'll be in your country soon. food.
Well, yeah, with the new business expo. But yeah, so I'm super thankful for you hopping on and, talking about media, because it's definitely something that, although I know a lot about marketing, I didn't know anything in this realm. So I know that the audience is definitely going to take something away, because I definitely did. And so it was a pleasure having you on, Tracy. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy as well. Yeah, look forward to meeting you someday.
Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode. Again, I am your host, John Mendez. You can find me at JohnMendez_realtor and at Walk to Wealth on Instagram. Please make sure to subscribe and leave a review if you're loving the podcast so far. New episodes are released every Sunday. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Take care.